Hi, welcome to my channel. I'm Casey, in case you forgot my name, and today I'm going to do a get ready with me and tell a story about the 6 months I had managing an animal shelter and what happened the day I quit, because it was pretty intense and I thought I might be arrested and made my husband drive 2 hours home to, just in case, because we had kids. So I told this story in a get ready with me 3 days ago that I filmed, and it ended up being like over 50 minutes, and I just couldn't get it cut down because I talked basically the whole time. And I thought I talked about some stuff that I probably didn't need to share, but I just get long-winded. So I'm going to try to do it again just to see if I can shorten it and get to the point. I also feel like I needed to say all this stuff is alleged. I don't know if I have to say that. I don't know how this works for legal reasons or something, because I'm going to be talking about other people and people who I don't think are good people. Allegedly, I don't think that. I don't know, again, how it all works. So just pretend this is a fictional story, I guess. And I say it also because I don't really know about the statute of limitations about everything. And if I was saying this as a true story, if I would still be able to, be arrested for things. So all of it alleged or fake or however you feel the need to say it. I also will point out that even if I did some things that were against the law, I remind you that the people that were hiding Anne Frank were breaking the law, and the people who killed her were following the law. So I am not always down with things just because that's the law. Sometimes laws aren't really following the same moral compass I have. All right, so let's get started. Okay, time frame rise. This story goes down in about 2015. I started working there about September. I'd been volunteering there for about a year before that, fostering and updating their pet finder page, which just basically was, I would go in and take pictures of the animals, and then I had their passwords so that I put the pictures onto the pet finder and just filled out the information about the cat's name and how old it was and what breed it was, that sort of thing. And around August, September, the girl who had been managing it and her best friend worked there as the main dog kennel girl. The two of them both quit, mostly because they did not get along with the vet who oversaw the animal shelter, who owned the animal shelter, however it was. The animal shelter had a contract with the city to be the, city shelter. So this was a kill shelter. It was not, privately funded, not like a humane society. And it wasn't run very well, which I think is hard to do when you get several animals in every day and there just isn't enough room to house them all, and not enough people to take care of them all. And the pets were dying there every day, and they would get sick and they'd have a virus, and then it could spread to the other animals. But I felt like it could be run better, and so I had basically just started kind of coming in and volunteering every day. But they hadn't hired a new manager yet. And the people that they had kind of coming in and doing that job were just people that actually worked at the vet clinic. But I thought I could do better because I felt like either they were hardened after working there for so long and just seeing animals die so much you just don't get attached, or they were just lazy because they would spend a lot of time just on Facebook or texting their friends or doing whatever, I don't know, but I thought they needed to be up cleaning cages and such things. Anyway, So as I mentioned, the girls, the young women who had been running the place, did not get along with the vet. And that was kind of a common thing that I ended up hearing, that he was not a very nice person, which I didn't see when I first started, being there. And, I took some of my pets to him as a vet. I thought he was, nice to me, nice to them. And so it really kind of made me question whether the girls were, I don't know what the right word would be, because I liked them. So it wasn't that. But I felt like he was an okay person. Until I started hearing a whole lot more about that he wasn't. But I've never been the kind of person who just believes what people say about other people, because I like lots of people that other people don't. And there are plenty of people that I don't think are nice people, that other people love and adore. Idolize, I'd say even. I did not get this asshole jerk kind of vibe from him at the beginning. But I also realize now that true crazy psycho people can just hide it well. And you might not pick up that vibe, because they're going to give you what they think you want. And they can do that for a long time and hide they're crazy. So now, although I still don't like to listen to a bunch of gossip or take other people and think that just because they don't like them that I won't either, it does, when you hear it from a lot of people, it makes me take notice and no longer just believe completely what I see. I keep my eyes perked now for other little hints that I maybe should have picked up on sooner. So basically, when I felt like I was seeing the shelter get worse instead of better, I started noticing more things, and I just went in and talked to the vet and told him that I wanted the job, and he hired me instantly. I was very honest with him, though, because it's just the kind of person I am. And I told him that I had one main concern, and it was that I have had lots of people tell me that he's not a very great guy, and that he would sometimes just get mad and go in and start euthanizing the animals, just kind of out of the blue, unexpected, no reason, almost like in a fit of anger. And he assured me that he had only done that before because the other young woman that worked for him had, been lying to him and would hide animals from him, and that, they weren't keeping the records straight, and then, he would have to go in and put them down because there was just too many to take care of. So I told him that, I wasn't going to be hiding, the animals, that there'd be records of everybody, but that I was not going to be okay if he didn't let me know ahead of time when he planned to do that. That it was a scheduled kind of thing, that if it needed to be done, it could be done, but that I wanted to start working with other animal shelters that were no-kill shelters and send some of our animals to them, and that, he didn't come in enough to just make that decision without consulting me, because he wouldn't know if somebody had just been in to look at the animal that he is just deciding to kill, but had went home to fix or make sure their fence was all secured before bringing a, dog into their home that they could just let outside to, go potty. Which, foreshadowing, was exactly something that happened once. And he totally agreed he would never do that. And I totally told him, good, because I would not be able to work for him if he did. So things are going along very well. I am working the Facebook page really well, so that I've got volunteers starting to come in to help clean cages and put away laundry and hang out with the animals and, bleach out the cages and scoop poop out of the yard, just all kinds of things. And getting donations for cat litter and cat treats and toys and dog toys and blankets and even the beds for the dogs, because most of our kennels just were concrete floors without beds in them. And at the very end, I had even started working with a well-known dog food company that was going to free of charge supply a lot of food. And really, when I started working there, I was having to sometimes bring in our own like bleach cleaning supplies. They would run out. Sometimes we would not have cat litter and would have to use like shredded newspapers, which just made a crazy mess. It was everywhere. There'd be poop splattered on the walls of the cages. It just, it didn't absorb well. I am working with a couple other shelters. One of them in our town that had never liked working with him because, again, they didn't trust him or think he was a good guy. I got to train him in a way. Have I mentioned yet? I've decided to use this Laura Sanchez Moods palette because it doesn't get much love. Because when you just look at this color story, I think it looks obnoxious. But every time I've used it, I've actually made nice, normal looks. I don't go crazy out of the ordinary or anything, but I like it, and I think the shadows perform well in things. I'm going to also use this Dr. Brandt luminizing base primer, which I've had well over a year. This thing just lasts forever. It was a huge tube. Okay, so I've started working with other animal shelters. One of them was in town, hadn't really worked with them before because they didn't like him, and one of them was 2 hours away, and they were also taking some of our animals for us. And I actually would have volunteers that would make the drive for us. So we didn't even have to, spend money and time taking them to that animal shelter. I didn't spend a ton of time with up at the vet office, even though it was just like a block away. I would have to go there like before and after work to pick up like the money tray and like the laundry, and then drop it back off. We didn't have a washer and dryer there. And sometimes even like some of the, receptionists up there or vet techs would go out for pizza and they would invite me, and everything was going really nicely. One story that I like about the vet was that one time we did have a terrible hoarding situation at a house that we had. The animal warden, animal officer, was going to go pick up like 26 cats from this woman and bring them all to us, which, we only usually would want around 30 cats, but we would usually always have a little more than 40 cats. So having this influx of like 26 more was going to be a lot. And the animal warden actually had me go with him into this lady's house, which was definitely something. And we had to, borrow cages and crates from the other shelter in town even to like accommodate them. And they just kind of had to stay in our garage area for a while. And most of them were in very bad condition, like had open sores even on them, had respiratory infections. And one of them, though, I don't know, probably because she was such a pretty cat, most of them look like all my cats, just normal domestic cats. But one of them was this just pretty white and gray, Siamese Himalayan-ish. I don't know, what breed it is that looks like that, but just so pretty. And she was so skinny. But I felt like I could help her, I guess. And she wasn't one of the ones that just were hissy and aggressive, because some of them definitely were feral. Anyway, I took her home, and then I started to feel like she may be pregnant. And I was already starting to get some bad vibes from the vet, but not crazy bad vibes. And I didn't know for sure that she was pregnant, but I also kind of didn't want to check, because somebody had said something once where he would sometimes want to put them down, the pregnant cats, because then he could just kind of take care of 5 or 6, with one swoop. So a little more time went on. She was definitely pregnant. But I had her at my house. I would often have a lot of cats at my house, like upwards of 12 or 15. extra, but usually they were all just like baby babies that I was, bottle feeding, or sometimes I would have a mother that gave birth. The problem with at the shelter, because you'd get so many new ones in all the time and every day, and they would come in with respiratory infections. Sometimes they would be getting sick, and the babies seemed to die quickly. When I was just volunteering there, it wouldn't be that odd to have a baby or a cat just dead when you went in the mornings. Anyway, this cat gave birth in my house, but she only had one baby, and that seemed very, very strange. And I was concerned because it seemed like she was still in labor, and this went on for hours. I called the vet and talked to him, and he said basically that, yeah, she probably has more in there, and he would need to do a C-section. So I brought her in, and I got to be in there while he did a C-section on her, and she did have one baby still in her that wasn't breathing when it came out. And he probably worked for a half an hour trying to get the baby to breathe by, like blowing in it and massaging it, rubbing it, and had me doing it. And I do know, he was probably trying to impress me that he wouldn't have probably done that if I hadn't asked him to. But he did it, and it was pretty cool and great. So not everything about him was terrible. Also, in the beginning, he let me do a lot of things that everybody else was kind of shocked that he was letting me do. Like, usually if a cat came in with ringworm, he would need to just put it down immediately, because that's also something that just would spread so quickly with all of the animals, and then they would have all these little bare spots, and people could get it, and people working with them would get it. And he let me in the basement kind of open up a ringworm ward, and basically I'd have to change my clothes before, going down there. And then I'd take care of them myself, and had to do these special baths on them, and treat them. And then I kind of started trying to do a barn cat situation where they would be a lot cheaper to adopt out for people. I think the point I'm trying to get at is I was there every day. It consumed my life. When I wasn't there, I was researching how to run an animal shelter and make it better. Researching all of these other, sort of things I wanted to do, talking to the other shelters about how they did things better. Because again, nobody was doing any of this before there. Like, they literally didn't know the correct, water to bleach ratio that they would need to, get rid of, whatever. Anyway, I think I mentioned I started getting weird vibes from him. I hope this is shorter than the last time. Just little things like he didn't really like it when I would work with the other shelters and let them have some of the animals. It was like he felt like that was taking money from him, because if he would have euthanized the animal, he would have gotten paid for it, whereas he didn't get paid if he just sent it to another shelter. But I was trying to cover things like even getting volunteers to donate money for the cost that he would have gotten to euthanize them, to send them to other shelters. That it was just, and it never made sense, because it was so much more expensive to keep the animals with us and, pay for their care than it was to send them to another shelter and have them start doing that. But things really, really went downhill when he brought in this lady who was probably 25 years younger than he was, but you could tell they had a thing. Again, allegedly. And he said that she was a dog obedience trainer, I think. I looked her up on the internet. You can do that. And she was easy enough to find because she had mugshots and records online. Allegedly. If my story is even true at all. Okay. Anyway, there were several of the women who worked for him for a very long time at his vet office, like his main vet tech, and the woman who was in charge of, they also had like a pretty large, like even as far as the whole state went, like birds of prey area that they had this one special woman who just knew her crap with the birds and took care of them. And I mean, they had bald eagles and I mean, that big rehabilitation bird thing. Okay, anyway, I didn't do anything with it. Several of these women either quit or were fired, because I don't exactly remember how, but this other lady was awful. And in my other one, I spent a good 10 minutes giving you examples of how awful she was. I'm just going to have you trust me on it this time, because that just got too detailed. And there were just other things that I couldn't believe some of the crap going down. For instance, one time in our laundry basket with laundry over and under it was a plastic bag with a dead cat in it that nobody said, by the way, there's a dead cat in there and you need to put it in the freezer so that he can take it to his barn and bury it, or, you know, whatever. There was no explanation. I just found a dead cat in a plastic bag in the laundry. And again, I was having lots of volunteers come in. I just could not imagine if I had not been the person to have found that, and that one of my volunteers had instead. Because again, no warning, no nothing. Just weird little things that was making me question things. Also, kind of the same way that I would often have animals at my house, I had my nighttime kennel girl who was taking home some dogs. And she would usually like just take one home for like a week. One of them that, you know, wasn't showing well or whatever in the kennels. And some of them, you know, don't show well in the kennels. They'll have kennel aggression, or, you know, they don't like to be like just in little concrete cages next to, you know, other dogs in concrete cages just pinned up the whole time. Anyway, she was doing great. And she had like a 4-year-old daughter, and she would have like a dog that looked scary, and she would take it home, and then like just each night she'd bring it back, you know, in the morning, and then it would look unbelievable. Like she'd tie a little bandana around its neck and it'd be all sweet and it'd get adopted right away. Well, we had a dog named Honey, and she was the dog that had been there the longest. And it was really like coming up to a year that dog had been at our shelter, and didn't show well at all. You definitely, if somebody was coming in to look at Honey, you needed to take Honey outside first, and then meet them outside, because in the kennel she would bark and growl and like look pretty ferocious. But my kennel girl had been making great strides with Honey, and she was looking so good. So now I'm going to take you to about March 1st of 2016, when my morning kennel girl, not that same one, called me really upset and told me that the vet had just killed 7 of our dogs, and wanted to know where Honey was, because Honey was going to be killed too, and I was supposed to bring Honey in to let him kill her. So I call, which I was irate about, and like my, you know, heart was racing and I was getting hot, and I just couldn't believe that all of this had happened. And I knew how good Honey was doing, and I was so sad about the other dogs, because they did not need to be euthanized. They were like, there were some good dogs on that list of 7 that he murdered, and I could have easily sent them to another shelter if he had wanted them gone, if he had talked to me. Again, one of them had somebody in there that had looked at them taking home adoption paperwork. It was just, everything about it made me sick. But I called and talked to a nighttime kennel girl, trying not to use names, you know, here. And I mean, of course, she was terribly upset too. And she also, you know, just, like, no, we're not going to bring Honey in there to let him kill her, right? Like, that's not going to happen. And I asked her, like, you know, if she would be willing to adopt her. And she was like, you know, yeah, definitely, you know, she would, or she could find somebody else too, or, you know, something could go down. So I had always like with me, like adoption paperwork and stuff. So I filled out the adoption paperwork for her and put the money in to adopt her, and brought it into the vet office and told them that we weren't going to bring Honey in. He told me that he wasn't going to accept that, and that if we didn't, he'd call the cops for us having stolen property. And I left and made some phone calls I called the other, like, the other shelter people, talking to them. I called my husband and had him, come back home the 2 hours because he was worked out of town during that time, Monday through Friday. And in case I was arrested, I felt like the kids might need somebody at home if I was being arrested. I was trying to decide how I was going to, start an Underground Railroad type situation for dogs and get them out of there. And, I talked to the kennel girl and made sure she was okay with losing her job and having him threaten that, because I didn't think that it would happen. I didn't think we would be arrested, but what do I know? I don't know how to do any of this. And I called an acquaintance of mine who is a news anchor who had talked to me one other time about the vet, because she also had heard just bad things about him and had previously thought about doing a story on some of the bad things that she had heard. She even adopted a dog from me instead of doing the story, but I let her know what was going on. And I asked her if I needed her to do a story, if she'd be willing to, and she agreed. So I went back in and talked to the vet. And while I was quitting, I also told him basically that, this news anchor was going to do a story, and it was either going to be how the dog that had been there for a year got adopted, or it was going to be how a dog that had adoption paperwork filled out and the money had been paid to him, he wasn't accepting and was having come back in from its foster situation to be euthanized when it had somebody who wanted to adopt it, and how he adopted, how he euthanized the other 7 dogs who had shelters around that would have taken them. Of course, I always had cats at my house. And so if at that time I would have had cats in my house, there would have been paperwork on them at the shelter, which after I quit, he told everybody working there that I wasn't going to be allowed to go there. However, they liked me more than him. So one time in my fictitious story I'm telling, a girl went into the cat room and didn't notice that somebody came in through the door and went through the paperwork and took the paperwork from the cats that were at my house, and they got adopted by nice people. And while I was talking to him, he was so smug and proud of himself and arrogant, and was trying to explain his actions as being acceptable because they were his dogs and it was his decision to make, and it needed to be done, and that they were aggressive dogs that, were too aggressive to, be around the public. I told him that he was a liar, that he had, when I started, agreed to never do that, that I wasn't going to let him make me a liar by not quitting, when I very much told him that I would if he ever did that. I also full on believed that the other woman that I mentioned talked him into doing it. And it's so stupid. All of this part is where I feel like when I tell the story, people will think I'm lying, because some of it just seems so ridiculous. I think she wanted to be the manager at the animal shelter and knew that I would quit if she had the dogs killed. Because, she did step into that position after I quit. Not for very long, because the whole place kind of collapsed upon itself without me there. No, anyway, I wish that I would not have needed to have quit. I wish that I hadn't told him that I would do that, in the first place. Because again, I definitely wasn't going to stay. If I told somebody that I was going to do something, I would do it. And maybe that's me being too proud or, too belligerent too. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm not going to back down on it. But I wish that I had, because a couple of the other women that were working at the vet office were documenting bad things that he was doing, and was working on taking him down. And they did. And I kind of wish more that I could have been part of that process. I'm also letting my gray go. I don't know if I will forever, but that's what I'm thinking right now. So within a couple of years after this, charges were brought against him for being too rough. You know what, if I look it up, I'll try to find exactly what he was charged with, because he had like 15 counts or something of different things, from whatever it would be called by not applying the proper technique that should be applied, to being too aggressive with animals, to not giving them proper sedation or anesthesia while doing surgeries. Like, there was a bunch of things that he got in trouble for. And he ended up, I believe, pleading guilty to avoid the jail time that would have went with them. But in the pleading guilty, then he just had to lose his license to practice instead of like going to jail. So anyway, this was still an incredibly long get ready with me. I'm sure there's going to be things that I forgot to tell you that I wish that I had. And I planned to sprinkle in pictures of animals that were at the shelter that I worked at, because I know that I don't know how to get them exactly off my computer yet. Maybe I'll just have to take pictures of the computer screen. But I know, because, you know, I took pictures of them all the time, that I have lots of pictures on there that I'll share with you. And yeah, I guess that's good enough. I don't know. Am I supposed to end this with me finished? Because I talked too much and got distracted and didn't finish. And it's long enough. I don't think you actually want to see. So maybe I'll pause and come back. While I have you, one thing I wanted to say, because is, as a licensed cosmetologist, if you have a curling iron or flat iron or instrument with heat, and you have medium to fine to thin hair, you do not need to turn it up as high as it goes. The setting is there because some people have really thick, coarse, strong hair that needs that high of a heat setting. You don't. If you have hair like me and it's fine, like, really, it doesn't need to go past, like, actually I've got mine on about 370 now, but I would have said 350. You're just frying your hair, people. There's no reason to set it that high. Turn your curling iron down and quit damaging it so much. Unless you have really thick hair and need it to be that high. Think about how high 450 degrees is. It doesn't need to be that hot. Okay. Also, thanks for taking a chance on this long of a video, and thank you for subscribing and being here with me. And this is my final look. Nice little normal look, I think, for my crazy outcome. I used the highlighters. The highlighters, I think, I forgot to even show them in my highlighter video because I don't use highlighters as highlighters, but those make really pretty shadows, I think. Let's see here. I don't know, you can't see how pretty they are on a screen. Here's one and here's one. This white one has such pretty like pink undertones to it. It's what I put on the very like low center in my eye. And then the other highlighter is just up a little bit more next to the green. But yeah, and then I just used the green and the two browns. That's all. That's all I got going on. All right. See you guys. Bye.